Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is Daybreak and the hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. On my immediate right, Dr. Maria Muli. She's a lecturer in diplomacy and international relations at the University of Nairobi. Next to her is Professor Peter Kagwanja, the Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Policy Institute and a teacher to Dr. Maria. Leonard Wanyama, international relations scholar, also joins us. Also in his company and in their company is Ahmed Hashi. So, Ahmed, this has taken us to the context of parties that are equally interested in these continents, given what we had talked about on over the potential of what Africa can produce in terms of personnel and also its trade capacity.
The great Anton Chekhov said that if there's too many remedies for a disease, it means it cannot be cured. So we know what our disease, we know what our problems are. And I like giving concrete examples. I predicted that there was going to be Gen Z transformation across the continent now, and I was just speaking to my senior. And I was telling him that Madagascar has put the army in charge because they're afraid of a coup. So the president has gone and put the army chief in to become a prime minister to try and stop a revolution. It cannot be stopped. This is a political economy issue that we have to grapple with. We grappled with ours and we continue to grapple with it. So a concrete example is the Sahel Union. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, the other day, withdrew from the International Criminal Court. They're withdrawing from, I think, the UN. I think they're withdrawing from all these other institutions. The French government went to the bond market to go and look for money, and they were downgraded because the Sahel Union cut the pipes of the tremendous amount of money that was flowing into France from West Africa, particularly in the Sahel region. The Sahel Union has shown how the economic transformation that is going on there, they're producing their own cars. Exactly 2 years after Mr. Traoré took power. It's, producing in Niger, they're producing their own railways. They're building it. They're building their own railways, their own lines. Let that sink in for 1 minute and compare us to what we've been getting, these old locomotives from the 1960s in China. So our problem is not the genius of the African personality, it is the corrupt, banal political leadership that my senior here was telling us about, that have just refused to accept to transform their countries. I saw the president speak about Singapore. I saw him speak about South Korea. I must be magnanimous to the president because, I mean, we have to have a bit of respect for the institutions that we have. But I think the president should give us a break. I mean, the president is not Lee Kuan Yew, nor is he Chung Pak-hai, people who went and shot people with bullets to make sure that things were working. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew had a marshland. He had a Kibra. His country was like Kibra. I'm not kidding. And he transformed it. How did he transform it? He appealed to the national consciousness of his people. And he was not corrupt, did not steal. Any minister or any person who was found stealing was put into a trial and sent to jail. His finance minister tried to talk to the CIA once over money in Singapore. He was put in prison. If we get discipline and if we get uprightness in our society, we will be able to move on. There's a saying in my language which says, "Havar fadida, legdi tu fududa," which is a bit sexist, but it says that an old woman sitting at the corner has dreams of wrestling a wrestler down the road. So I think that it is very important for us to understand that our political economy has changed. 80% of our people are under 25. They are connected to the world. They want change and they want it now, and they don't care how it comes.
Okay.
And once we break the illusions that we have in this country, this region, in this continent, about the truths of what we are living, then we will be able to get political leaders who are going to push us forward.
Okay. And Prof, this then brings me to the political question. And one question in two. The president in Vihiga County and also in Meru County in 2 days, in the span of 3 days, talked about how the political leadership post-independence in Kenya has led down Kenya's pathway to prosperity. Admission of guilt on the part of the political elite. Second, today the foreign affairs ministers will be discussing the peace and security in the COMESA region. Ideally then, how are we going to put all this into practicality when Eastern DRC is unresolved,
on fire,
when the Horn of Africa region still is experiencing insecurity situations, Sudan still is not yet settled. And we're talking about Ethiopia, where there are, I mean, you can understand the situation in Oromia region and also in
nearly
Ray
a failed
region.
state.
And the Prime Minister who can rarely get out of Addis, the capital.
True.
So how will take place in this context?
Well, let's go back to the creation of the African Union and why it became necessary to have the African Union transformed from the Organization of African Unity. The whole idea was to change gear from political emphasis to now economic emphasis. And the philosophical question or answer came from the Indian Amartya Sen, that development is freedom. And therefore, development is human rights, development is liberty, and development is peace. And therefore, I see in broader context the meeting of COMESA on peace and security as very, very central. But it is not about how many, armored vehicles or drones you need to bring to the region. It's how many dollars, how many kilowatts of electricity we increase in terms of consumption. It is not about how many jets, fighter jets you bring onto the continent. It is how you add value to the goods in order to increase the share. The easiest way of demobilizing a fighting force, whether it's Al-Shabaab or any other, is basically to develop them out of radicalism. And therefore, we need to use that model. In my institute, we have a project as a partnership on peace and development in the Horn of Africa as the way out of the kind of cyclic conflicts that we have been having for the last 60 or so years. And you've mentioned countries like Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a powerhouse. The whole country is essentially an arable land. It is the best highlands in the world. And I cannot see why Ethiopia should not be competing with China in terms of its development. Look at the population. That tells you that the market in Ethiopia is huge. Why is it having a begging bowl in its hand? Why is everybody in the world talking about Ethiopia hunger, Ethiopia this? That is where we come to the central question that Hash raised, which is about leadership. And us as leaders, we must also, look back. We call ourselves to a meeting where we now begin to reflect. Are we adding value in the lives of our people, or we are simply engaged in rhetoric just to impress what we are calling the rise of the PR governments? The issue is, for us who are governing under Kibaki, we are again beginning to reflect the mistakes we made. And I was sharing with my colleague that one of the greatest mistakes we made as thinkers and leaders under President Kibaki was to think about creating a middle class and an elite, which is true. We brought the largest consumers, and at that time the economy was booming, so we had huge consumers, Africa's largest, fastest growing middle class. But what has happened? We have given birth to the Gen Zs. Why? Because the Gen Zs cannot rise to the same level under the current economy, where we have 100 engineers for 3 technicians. So we are standing on our head that we needed to invest heavily on technical education in order to fuel our industrialization. So President William Ruto and his colleagues have a heavy lifting to do to invert that pyramid and get us standing on our feet, not on our heads. We need to fast track the technical education in the country, even as we continue to create thinkers, because we also don't want dada heads. Those are not going to give us the kind of leadership Hashi is talking about. Enlightened leadership also comes from carefully training those who are going to govern you. Those who are governing us don't even have a mental map of where they are taking this country. So we are cruising in the world ship. This is it. No mental map of anything that we're doing. So, in short...
They're going to get medals.
The piece, that is the point, that a person queues on the line, carrying his bag of getheri on a plastic, no innovation, and then he gets the elder of golden hat.
Golden hat.
Or whatever, accommodation of whatever. I mean, a friend of mine, actually one of our leaders, I can mention her here, Mother Karua told me that she does not put EGH, all those things. She has all of them in her name.
Yep.
Why? Because they have become meaningless. We have served in the government. Now I've been serving this government for 15 years. I've written briefs for the president and all that. I don't have a medal. And I feel proud because I don't want to be in the group of Getheri men and others. Not because I want to demean fellow citizens, but because medals make no sense. You cannot cash them, either in moral capital or in moral terms.
Yeah, and Dr. Maria, then this brings us, as Prof talks about, the question of how visionary our leadership is, be it in Kenya, within the COMESA region, the continent. Are we there? I mean, as Ahmed pointed out, where there's this long list of selfless leadership that caters for the interests of the African people?
I think we don't have visionary leaders, actually, because at the moment they get into power, all they think about is accumulating the wealth. Now it brings us now into the issue of gaps where we have the haves and the have-nots. That is the reason why we have to go to the streets to protest, because we feel like you're not doing the job that we actually employed you to actually be doing to us. So we don't have visionary leaders in Kenya, even in Africa. At least in the Sahel, we are trying to see Traore coming up and being intentionally and having that political will that they need to transform Burkina Faso. So I think in Kenya, this is to our president actually, they really need to come out of this cocoon that they need to accumulate wealth. And actually they're leaving the younger generation outside from the table. So what they really need to do is just work. Give us this environment that we can be able to thrive as young people, everybody, because trade, it is at the heart of an economy. Without trade, we are not moving forward. So our president actually really need to have technocrats, people who mean well for the country so that we can thrive. Yes.
Yes, Leonard, your hand is up.
Maybe just to add on this, you see a lot of good intent. For instance, if we take the foreign policy of the country, and whatever is said in a lot of this, but the implementation is schizophrenic. And when we come to questions of leadership, we can now begin to see, particularly in this part of the world, a lot of this leadership is not going to rely on the politicians. This is coming from lots of non-state actors. If you look at questions on tax and the global conversations around that, that's mainly driven by civil society organizations. When you look at debt, when you look at trade, so it's not simply a question of just vesting this in the political leaders alone. It is now a time, because of technology and changes in some of our societies, that you can have the conducive environment that you can drag them along, or at least bring them to a point of deciding the right thing. Indeed, the mental map issue that Professor Kagwanja has just raised is very important, because we need to be interested and imaginative about our futures. There is clearly a very big lack of imagination of how we see ourselves 30 years from now. Kenya and the region has mainly been running on some few scenarios that have been developed as far back as 2000, and we only have few that push things to 2040. But we need to be having a much longer term thinking on these issues. And so even as you hear the conversations that have been had, and they are going to be had about peace and security, you can see that the president has, in one way or the other, inadvertently kind of found himself intellectually proposing that Kenya can be a world bridge But what does that mean in terms of implementation? What actions are we taking to that effect, as opposed to just having the right words rolling off our tongues? If we are talking about peace, for instance, I have proposed in certain spaces that in imaginative context and language, we can think of peace in the savannah, where if you have peace in the savannah, you have peace in the world. And that kind of locates your peace around the world. And you begin to identify friends so that you can place yourself properly in the world and then begin to work around that transformation.
Ayub, the essence of evil is the refusal to think. I cannot find that quote is actually not mine. It's from my favorite thinker, Hannah Arendt, a Jewish German philosopher. When you refuse to think, what happens to you, evil is what comes out. If you look at how we have refused to think about this country, and what a great country this is, what a great country this is. For an example, in our place there, we're sitting on $500 billion worth of gas and oil in our region. But right on top of there, from Habasweine to Isielo, the calorie intake of our people is at 5% maybe, or 10% what the national level is. We have political leadership in that region that we fought for something called devolution and constitutionalism. We couldn't pass the bridge in Garissa because there were armed men, my first time there. If you walk down the road, you'd see the camel herders who didn't have any education, because northern Kenya was made into a Bantustan by the successive governments in this country. And that is equal to every other region in this country. If you go to anywhere in Mount Kenya, if you go to Nyanza, the same problem of poverty is there. So we're not talking about playing with the system. The system needs to be transformed. And how do you transform a system? I'll give you a little example. For example, we need to light up, we need lights. We need, for us to produce something, we need electricity. Instead of sharing a bond from the Eurobond, all these African states can come and just get a pipe and 2 magnets and go to the DRC, go over the Inga Dam, put the 2 magnets and the pipe, and it will light up even Burkina Faso all the way to Senegal. It is the largest electricity deposits in the whole world. But we refuse to think, and that's how evil comes. We have oil and gas in our place. We should transform this region. We're refusing to think.
Okay.
So my point is this.
Yes, because I wanted to
my point is this, I'll come critically to this point. You can ask me this question. If we want to understand economics, global economics today, as you asked before, is that the Europeans are a bloc, the North Americans are a bloc, they are trading between each other, and the Chinese, they're antagonistic. We in Africa are not even players in the economic tables of this world. The Chinese come here, they build something, they take their resources out. No worker buys a car, buys a home, buys a farm from doing labor in these major transformational so-called infrastructural transformations. It's not happening. So what we are asking is that we need basic economic thinking to start to come into our countries, our region and our continent, so that we can have a standard of living that is better than what we have.
Yeah. Prof, coming to you, and this is the Global Innovation Index Scorecard 2025. I'm sure you guys appreciate the Germans are an inventive bunch when it comes to production. In 2024, Germany filed 16,700 international patent applications. But according to the global ranking of 139 countries by the World Intellectual Property Organization, Germany is no longer among the 10 most innovative countries in the world. It's still in that regard. So shockingly, number 1 is Switzerland, 2 is Sweden, 3 America, 4 Singapore. Germany is now out of even the top 10. China assumes its position 10. So you have Singapore at position 5, Britain 6, Finland 7, Netherlands 8, Denmark 9, and China 10. And then continues Japan, France, Israel, Hong Kong, and the list is long. So the Prof, to expound it further, they have based the research on the following areas, which they say had informed the Global Innovation Index. This was on trademarks, exports, issues in regards to research, investments in universities, and ideally also tech exports, technology, spending on research and development.
Yep.
If you look at that and the policy players and what the president said, which was very profound in Meru County, that it's the political leadership, that mission that he made post-independence. This was an assault on this country, is it?
No, we made the cardinal sin, committed the cardinal sin of doing the other way around. If you look at Lee Kuan Yew and what he was arguing about why Singapore has become what it has become, it's a very simple equation, just like how God thought about creating the world by the sun is still, the earth moves. So if you just imagine that the earth is the one which is still and the sun is moving, you are living in your own world. You've got to get the equation right. How we did not get the equation right in Kenya is that we did not put our best and ablest in positions of authority. There is it's junk in, junk out.
Yep.
There is no alternative, and I'm not being arrogant because I'm a son of a peasant.
Yep.
And I am here because I went to school.
Yep.
There is nothing else. I have absolutely nothing else to show except the fact that I sat in that classroom, somebody paid for my school fees. Kenyatta did, Kenyatta won, because education was affordable even for the poor at that time. It is not affordable now for the poor. The education is for the rich. And there is even rich education, meaning the education that can only be afforded by the rich. There is the other education that can be afforded by the poor. Talk about apartheid, educational apartheid. It is here in this country.
Yep.
I mean, when you are paying for a kindergarten kid, 150,000 in this country, kindergarten or baby class, and another one is not able to afford even 40,000 for a secondary school fees, then we are talking about education apartheid in this country. Now, if we don't get our equation right, that we put our best and ablest in position of authority, the big word they use here is meritocracy. I don't want to use that. But it is not difficult to look at the headline of a newspaper and tell us who is our best and who is our ablest.
Yes.
That one is not an equation. And there is nothing the Singaporean did except that. When Lee Kuan Yew was commenting on Kenya and why we are going behind Senegal, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. Now you're talking about countries. In the next 25 years, meaning by 2050, the world is going to change. And if you read PricewaterhouseCoopers and other reports by international major research groups, you find by 2050, the current G7 countries, only one will fit into the G7, and that is the United States. The rest will be replaced. The countries that are going to lead the world are some of them, Kenya is not even giving them serious thought. Mexico will be one of them. Indonesia will be the other.
It will pass Japan.
And all of them are going to, Japan will be there in the 12, 13, those sides. So the countries, Nigeria is the only country in Africa that will enter below 15, but it will not reach the 10. So what does that mean? We cannot do business as usual. As a country like Kenya, which is ambitious, and our people are ambitious. I mean, I go to class at the university and look at the kind of hard work. I push them to the extreme, thinking that they are going to break. Kenyans are very resilient people. They are ambitious and want to work. But their leadership is still doing what President Ruto was criticizing, and I'm sure he will also be criticized for the same. Has he put the ablest and the best in positions of power? That is the cardinal question he has to answer Lee Kuan Yew. In order to answer question to Lee Kuan Yew, why Kenya is underdeveloped, why Kenyan Gen Zs are in the street, is because our leaders have not done that. The exception, to a great extent, was Kibaki. Did the miracle not work? Why are we seeing Kibaki period as the golden period? It's because Kibaki, to the best he could under the circumstances of political equality.
I'm going to steal a bit of
Yes, no, I'll come to you, Ahmed. Allow me to come to Dr. Dr. Maria, the other bit is then the digitization of systems. And if you look at those countries I've mentioned, and Taiwan to include it because of its semiconductor production en masse, I mean, which grants the American protection from possible Chinese invasion, the paranoia in Washington. How then will technology serve the market that we have talked about, and in the context of Kenya, very innovative country, but you look at the policies, they don't seem to favor those who want to think, to imagine, to innovate, and to reimagine Kenya in the context of where it is, given its young population? Yeah, actually that is where the intellectual property comes in. We've actually seen some of our products, like even the Maasai shukas, being even taken and with people like Japan, and they own it because we never patent them. So another issue is, look at Vietnam now. I want to give it as an example because it has become one of the the second largest exporter of coffee, and it's because of technology, and they're able to actually even store their coffee beans for even 2 years and then export it. So why are we still not even doing it here in Kenya? So we really have that huge gap when it comes to implementing technology and adapting to new technology that are able to improve our export outside there. So the government really has a very big issue to deal with when it comes to technology, acquiring new technology, because we have the brains here, but we are not actually implementing the fundamental issues that we are supposed to solve, our trade issues and all that. Yes. Yes, Leonard, on the question of technology as well and the innovation needed much, Ahmed, I'll come to the question of diplomacy. Please.
I think I am one of those people, though I'm very proud of the glory M-Pesa has brought to us. Well, I'm frustrated in the fact that we don't see anything else we can be proud of to sell out there, to talk about our Silicon Savannah. The idea of this technology should be, how do we get to leapfrog and get the transformation? So for instance, in the case of M-Pesa, the leapfrogging happened in the sense that once you manage to get so many people into the financial setup, then they could be capacitated to do all manner of businesses. You can see with the Pochi la Biashara and so on and so forth. So thinking about technology in any other way needs to have that arithmetic of leapfrogging, considering how we have so much to catch up on and kind of do all this business we keep talking about technology. Now, for instance, a few years ago, there was something very exciting about a semiconductor factory in this country, but we don't hear much about it. Are we exporting those chips? Are we doing something with that in terms of building a new industry with those chips? Or did we just create another white elephant? And so we should be hearing those kinds of stories in terms of this semiconductor factory is actually enabling these kinds of activities that are transforming the country. And when I take this back to the question of leadership, the reason why we find such a deficit with our politicians and our policymakers in this respect is that they don't do the fundamental questions in terms of transformation. They don't mention what we need to sacrifice, what we need to manage appropriately, what we need to protect, and what we need to abandon. Because those are the kinds of questions you need to have and say, if we abandon this, then we get this gain. And in that respect, we would then begin to speak very clearly to the efficiency that technology will bring, the crowdsourcing of knowledge needed, and also increasingly we are thinking about the sovereignty of countries and individuals in that sense, in terms of our pluralistic society, and then also the facilitative nature which I had kind of mentioned. So we really need to come out of this bubblegum diet of ideas to actually real ideas that speak to moving from point A to B.
You know, the president speaks and goes into long speeches. You would think you're in the middle of a central committee of the Soviet Politburo of the Soviet Union. He has spoken about development and how Kenya is in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that we should have left this place a long time ago. I agree with him. But, you know, it is Orwellian for the president to speak in the values, in such values, and then want to give these fellows MBEs and medals, people who have been in jail, people who have started civil wars in their communities. It is Orwellian because through one side of his mouth, the president is saying that we want to be like Singapore, and through the other side of his mouth, Mr. Murkomen has spent billions in these barazas across the country, which could have gone into something more appropriate. For an example, milk for children in this republic. Yeah. So I think the doublespeak, you know, I keep quoting this fellow from 1984. It's Orwellian. The president needs to give us a break because we're waiting for the elections so that we can find a leader in this country who can help us move to the direction that we want. The second thing is, I think it's fundamental for us to understand that the global economic order today, Ayub, has now turned ferocious. There is a tariff and trade war among the superpowers in this globe of ours. We in Africa are not on the radar. We need not concentrate on trade rounds in Doha, going to Davos, going to all these places. We need to stop these things and we need to call and sit down and say, okay, what are the first 3 things we need to do for the short term to create employment in this region? So the question is, we have to end the borders, we have to get one currency, we have to get one citizenship, and we have to cede our sovereignty to a council of ministers who are going to help us with the economy. I don't know why we have the Ministry of Defense. Why do we have a Ministry of Defense in this country? Who are we at war with? All these tanks and all these things. It's passé. What we need is a small army which can deal with the emerging threats from little groups. What we don't need is the largest number of cabinet in our country, and the most incompetent since independence. Now, Mr. Kagwanja's point about leadership in this country, if the president is serious about double-digit growth and integrating the region, why is his cabinet so incompetent? And he has admitted it himself. I'm the one who criticized him here for micromanaging. Remember that? He admitted it. He said, I'm micromanaging because they're not doing their job. So it's true. I'm not criticizing the president for free. He admitted it. He said that I'm micromanaging because the people in my government are not doing their job.
Okay, and in the names on the front page that you have the 4 lawmakers, this is
just a fact.
The nominees proposed for conferment of national honors 2025 by the National Assembly. And on the cabinet, he hasn't exceeded the constitutional limit, but he has exhausted.
He's exhausted everything.
So he has as many advisors.
Massive.
Massive. If he finds a new skill that he must hire, he'll have to fire somebody. You always leave a breathing space. Somehow along the way. Either way, I think what we're saying is that a country is like an organism. All its parts must cohere. And the most important one, if you around me, is the brain. Yeah, true. And what is the brain of a nation? It is not a one leader. It's a cumulative, the total number of brains that are best. And that does not mean, if there is any tyranny that is around by philosophy and law, is the tyranny of the mind. That one is around. That if you are, and that's why people talk about enlightened leadership. And that's why people also keep quiet about so-called dictators who promote their countries. Now, whoever called President Xi Jinping a dictator? When he is moving his country forward in all the technology.
Yes.
So he has erased the whole idea of aristocracy, a whole about dictatorship, because what he is imposing in his country of China, and I read, it is basically the tyranny of the mind, the tyranny of the technology we are talking about, the tyranny of agro-industrialization, the tyranny of technical transformation, and even moving it beyond the borders to other countries that he think need that kind of a thing. I sit on the board of Muranga. I'm the chair of the board, Muranga Technical. And we have machines that can produce spare parts for the entire of Mount Kenya region. In that small technical institution, supplied by AVIC International, which is a Chinese corporation through the Chinese government. Now, I was challenging my members, can we do a simple spare part for boda bodas, the one that they are using frequently? And it's like, this is a new idea. That is what we should have been talking about in 1965. That can we supply ourselves with spare parts, not going to Japan for everything that we're doing. So we have become a consumer. And this is why this COMESA meeting is so important to us. We are a consumer of everything from outside, from rice to maize to everything. And one wonders even how we are making it. No wonder we are all on tenterhooks. You know, because if you are consuming what you don't grow and grow what you don't consume,
you're a slave.
What are you not a slave?
Okay.
So we need to think our economy upright. One, we put the ablest and best of our people forward to what they are good at. Don't make Professor Kagwanja the head of surgery at Kenyatta Hospital so that I have a big name and go to Muranga bragging around, right? Just give me what I need, what I'm good at.
That will be pushing you into incompetence.
He's promoting me into incompetence. And that's what we are doing in this country, promoting everyone. I talked about this, about my friend. I love, Mudavadi. He has been my boss and a person I've admired. But I always say that they have promoted Mudavadi into incompetence.
Yes.
He was the best, one of our best finance ministers. We all know that. So Mudavadi is not incompetent at all. But you promote him into incompetence because you put him at a very critical juncture into the wrong place.
Okay.
And don't give him the support he needs to move up.
Yes, Dr. Maria, coming to you. And Ahmed, just on your point, talking about spending on defense, I think it's only America which is now more or less into the war race. More than 720 military bases. China has only one, with Americans in Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti.
In Djibouti.
And they're the biggest exporters of electric cars. Alluding to your point earlier. So, Daktari, then how does this all then take effect in the context of protectionism? We had seen at times the flaring of the fireworks between Kenya and Tanzania, as we had witnessed, and of how much advantage would Somalia be, which is the last kid in the East African bloc and by extension also part of COMESA, given it has the longest coastline in the continent with mass deposits of oil and gas. How will this take place? Of what weight and advantage can it add? And also the question of protectionism from diplomatic perspective.
Okay. What actually COMESA really needs to do, this is now in the issue of integration, that we really need to integrate more within ourselves. And also, I actually noted that according to the African Continental Free Trade Area, that the Annex 2 actually of the goods, which allows us to have a trade agreement with the third party, the COMESA people are not actually utilizing it. So even in the issue of AGOA, because I noted in 2024, Somalia was not there, Uganda was not there, Ethiopia, Eritrea, they were not there. So what does that mean? That we are losing out as a continent in terms of trading fully within ourselves, and we can actually leverage on the Annex 2 so that we can even enter into agreements with United States, the European Union, so that we can actually have one voice as an African continent and not as different blocks. So I think in terms of technology and all that, each state should just come up with their own intellectual property law, which we already have, and actually utilize it to our own advantages. Yes.
Yes, Ahmed, your hand was up.
Well, I think that last week, a young man walked up to me here in town, here in Hurlingham, not going to say his name. His first name is Elkanah. And he walked up to me and he said, I'm hungry. He was from Narok. Of course, as a Muslim, I'm mandated to do what is right, and I did. But it made me think about how bright, I have pictures of this young man and I have his telephone number, how bright and how adroit and how smart that young man was. He was very articulate. He had dropped out of Form 2 because of school fees. A common story across this country. You know, it is a scar, it is, you know, the wretched of the earth, which says that we lose billions and billions and billions of shillings in corruption every day in our country. And our young people have nothing to eat. I think that the coming elections are going to be about the economy. The most important election since independence, in my view. And it's going to be about the economy. It's going to be about how we're going to transform, or how the leaders who come out are going to want to transform this country from a little village to maybe the next level, in which we can deal with basic things like healthcare. You know that SHA, this, I don't call it SHA anymore, I call it Shisha. It's not working. The economy, you know, there's no money in this economy. Nobody has money, everybody's crying. You can see the government is splashing money everywhere with these security meetings, which just don't make sense to me. It's just the government has lost direction. It's not in touch with the common realities of this country. And therefore, we are going to exercise our franchise in the coming elections. We're not going to give it to the opposition, because we see what the opposition are. Maybe they're probably just as bad as the government, because you have seen the kind of language that is spewing out of some of the people in the opposition. It's just shocking. So there is a call for patriots in this country to stand up and to save their country, because we're in a lot of trouble, Ayub, I put it to you. And I think that if you're not going to care about the future of your country or where we are going to go, then when it collapses or when it doesn't do so well, you have no one to blame. Lastly, Ayub, I just want to say that this country is very decent people. This country is very, very... I've traveled across the world, and I've never met more, you know, better people than the citizens of this country. And everybody knows that. Our question about leadership, it has to emerge from this crisis that we have today. And those leaders who stand up and say enough is enough are going to be the golden generation, the Gen Zs, who are coming to vote, who are going to protect their vote, who are going to be in every polling stations, and I hope they field candidates and they can come and support me here in Langata, where I'm going to stand for my parliament.
That's for another
cause much more trouble in the National Assembly.
We'll have the time. Leonard, today's Foreign Affairs closed-door session, ministers from COMESA, ideally, how bold should they be in confronting the new reality in the region, that is the dipping state of democracy, the authoritarian tendencies, human rights record that is wanting, given the cases of Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who are held in Uganda, but authorities over there are denying that. I mean, should they be bold enough also to confront the new realities politically, democratically, socially in the region?
I think very much so, because it is their responsibility. What they are finding themselves in is a situation where democracy is moving faster than they are ready in terms of states, in terms of structure and so forth. And so, as I said earlier, you have all this good intent, but the schizophrenic kind of understanding, implications and so forth catches people off guard. I don't know who exactly will bring up that point, but for instance, it is quite clearly a very despicable situation. I don't understand how security agency can have press conferences, and this is now a trend where they say they don't know. No. It's quite strange. Particularly if you think about, for instance, East Africa alone, there are certain dreams and aspirations that bring these communities, these countries together in terms of how we are moving forward. You saw when we were hosting the Chan football, and how the people are very together. They understand each other, even in their jest and whatnot. They can navigate that themselves. But among states, we see this deep and or kind of pretense that they are not aware of what is happening and so forth. So there has to be an understanding about the new world we are moving into.
Yeah.
You have to realize that I understand that they might be afraid of what I can call accelerated insurgency, where because they have the tools, because there are so many that they can very quickly overrun the governments. But they should be quick to understand that they can explain themselves very clearly in terms of kind of democratic crowdsourcing, that you approach these people in their spaces, explain what the problems are, but of course, unfortunately, it's because of the deficit in governance that we find ourselves in this situation. So that schizophrenia is quite a problem. Now, in terms of a leadership question, even, for instance, for COMESA, we might have to abandon this idea that we have to keep pursuing jobs for the guys and girls, where we think that if we have placed people in these institutions, then we might be able to influence them. Probably we might think of something like hosting TFTA in Nairobi as part of this move for diplomatic capital, so that as people interact in Nairobi, we can get to understand this question of democracy, and it can then do the spillover effect of regional integration, rather than keeping to find ourselves catching situations that we are not aware. Because the more we interact, the more we get to understand this. In fact, one of the questions I wondered is in terms of, would some of the heads of state be comfortable to come in Nairobi, considering our very cantankerous nature and what we perceive of them? And this is it's a contestation that we have to engage directly without any other
I want to say something about Somalia question that you asked.
I want to go to Prof first.
Okay, let me just steal a little bit of time.
Can take a minute.
I've stolen a lot of my time before. I can
take a minute.
Okay. Kagwanja has taken a lot of my time before. Today I'm going to take.
Today I've given.
So, senior. So there's elections that are going to come in Somalia. You know, our intelligence chief and the Ethiopian intelligence chief are in Kismayo. There was a meeting between the president of Somalia and the kingpin, what I call a kingpin, the grand mullah there. And it broke down. Unfortunately, there was no peace deal. You know, we want to send 2 to 3 million people to Somalia to go and do the drilling, to do the technical stuff, so that they can send $1,000 every month to Kenya, and want a stable government in Somalia, so that we don't have, we can all do this East Africa thing. And things are getting quite good. There was a delegation from Somaliland here, which met a delegation from Puntland. Means that the Somalis are now slowly trying to talk to each other about rebuilding their nation. This is very critical. We want to make sure that the president of Kismayo and the central president, Sheikh Mahmoud, start making peace. We don't want them to fight. And I think that, that the coming elections are very important. And the former prime minister from the last government is called Said Shirdon. He's an elder, comes from Gedo here, I think from the Marihan clan. I think is one of the leading contenders for the presidency. I think it's very important that people like that are elected, so that they can start talking to the northerners, they can start talking to the people in the central part, they can start talking to the people in the south, so that we can bring the Somali state back. It is part and parcel of the Kenyan economy, part and parcel of our politics. Mr. Kagwanja and I are experts on this matter, and we're very happy to hear this good news that's starting to come out of Somalia. We want to elect, we want people there elected who can put an end to this nonsense. Lastly, in the Ogaden region, I saw that they had transferred $2 billion to the federal government. I mean, I'm shocked. I think that the Ethiopian government needs a constitutional form of government, because that region has got the largest gas deposits in Africa. And if they don't have their cut, and if they don't have a constitutional system of government, and if they don't have development, Ethiopia's problem will continue. So what we need is this region to start thinking and bringing people together, so that we can exploit our resources and we can move forward.
Yeah, I hope you can pick up from that.
No, I think I have paid all my debts in terms of time to Hashi. That said, I think the question we have been addressing here, if we have to reduce the COMESA debate and the COMESA mandate that Kenya is assuming, it is to get Africans walking on their legs, not on their feet, not their heads. in all dimensions. For example, in the question of leadership, we are saying that let's not just have enlightened leadership, but let's be able to put those of our men and women in positions of authority. We put the best and ablest. If we do that, we have solved the equation of Lee Kuan Yew. Second, we need to have inclusive economies that make sense. Economies that are able to include the young, the youth, and that are able also to include the aging, those who are, living. There must be something for those who are living so that they don't become a burden. Let's not have Western models. Let's think for ourselves. Let's not get our thinking from Washington and from Paris.
I agree.
We are capable of thinking ourselves. In any case, there's no other country I know of which has educated its top brass in the top universities in the world.
Than Kenya.
Yep. Most of our people are from Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and everywhere. Why can't we think for ourselves? Must we take cue from their thinking so that they guide us on what to do rather than us guiding ourselves? We need an original leadership that thinks straight for ourselves. Yep. Finally, let's not emphasize this issue of peace and security. When we were forming the new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, we defined peace, security, and governance as enablers of development. Yeah. Why? Because we conceptualize development as peace itself. Now, if you put all the Gen Zs now into jobs that they like and into environments where they're happy when they are working, then you not have them in the streets. Simply pulling back the Gen Zs from the trenches is essentially developing the country. I think that's what we are saying. And I think finally, Kenya has to tone down rhetoric. And we get to serious business. There's too much rhetoric in this country.
He's talking too much.
No, any time we get a microphone, we want to mesmerize people. We are like perpetual preachers. Yeah. Let's get to serious business. It is true. It's a culture of politics. Yeah. We are generating this country. Yes. Anytime you get a microphone, you want to mesmerize.
Yes.
Please don't mesmerize. Educate.
Absolutely. I agree.
Don't traumatize. Basically, calm us down. We need to calm down to work and get out of the rooftops. I know this is a disease of both the opposition and the government. Yep. Please get out of the rooftops of cars. Policies are not made on rooftops. That's now pure propaganda in its rawest form. Yeah. Even Hitler did not get that low. In terms of, they sit in the boardroom. Yeah. And then you move to the people caucuses. That is what our friend, Fidel Castro, yes. Xi Jinping and others. It's people sit down and talk. Look at the Somalis under an acacia tree. Yep. They sit down and talk. Nobody get on the treetop to start shouting to the neighbors. Get out of the tops of the cars.
That's the last word today. Yeah. Very well.
Yeah, very well. Get out. And even with Hitler, Joseph Goebbels never had such a tedious assignment in that very bad period. Yes, final comments.
For me, I think Africa, we should move away from the dependency notion.
Very true.
And we should channel our energy on African agency. Absolutely. That we are capable of developing our nations ourselves. Yes. We don't need the European Union or the USAID to fund mostly of our project. And as Professor mostly wants to say, whoever...
Your teacher.
Yeah.
I think they have outgrown that now.
You're now colleagues.
Now you're colleagues.
Your colleagues.
So whoever calls the... whoever
pays the piper.
Yeah, calls the tune. Yeah, definitely. So we really need to get away from the dependency notion.
Okay. Yeah, so let's sample the feedback. Laura, 30 seconds as I pull.
Yeah, so I think to move away from the anti-dependency school of thought here, my left. And
your left.
Yeah, and just borrowing from a story here about tax waivers to the UN boss.
Yeah.
we must embrace the devil in the details, because this question of tax waivers is one of the issues that will keep playing around and annoying Kenyans very much. We have a movement of civil society in South Africa right now preparing for the UN tax convention coming in November. This is a situation where Dutch companies already have a 15% kind of lower exemption, but then Kenyans will probably be very annoyed in terms of this, and we have to kind of be aware that these are the details that have to be addressed for a lot of these things.
Okay, so let's sample the feedback. Babu Michael says, I feel that until COMESA countries have trust on goods from member states, then how many you can have your seat? Then COMESA will get to the next level. The truth is that the member states trade more with the outside world, i.e. Europe, than African countries. Okelo Mwalimu says it has reached a point where the ordinary Kenyan no longer cares about the prestige that comes with hosting or chairing regional and global summits like COMESA. Mama Mboga and Boda guys want to know how they will benefit from such engagement. Someone should declassify that. Prof also pointed that out.
Very true.
Frank Orinde says the biggest setback in the COMESA region isn't the lack of resources, it's a leadership gap. Until leaders put people before politics, integrity before interests, and vision before vanity, regional growth and integration will remain a dream deferred. Babu Michael again says, I feel that for COMESA to get to the next level, member states must also make sure that their economies, democracies are stable for more trade gains to be realized. We should see less of conflict and youth uprisings which destabilize trade.
Wonderful.
Many thanks for your time. Ahmed Hashi, much appreciated.
Ayuba, asante sana.
Leonard Wanyama, International Relations Scholar, also joined us this morning here. Professor Peter Kagwanja is the Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Policy Institute. His student, Dr. Maria Muli, lecturer in Diplomacy and International Relations, also with us in the studio this morning. And more, to many more reunions, Prof.
I teach them science and technology in international relations.
Okay. And
how technology brings power.
Discussion that we had.
What a wonderful discussion.
Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for your time.
Asante sana.
Up next is Health and Lifestyle with Safin Achieng-Goma. And I'll see you tonight on The Bench with Senior Counsel and CI County Governor James Orengo. Till then, good morning.